Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Soss number 212-IT. This is a template used for machining wood doors and wood frames for the Soss 212 hinge, and it's only for the 212 because this specific size that's created here is just for in the in the geometry of the stop pins. Everything is just for the 212. This makes installing Soss hinges easier and faster than ever. Each router guide template is individually handcrafted for exactness. They're making this on a CNC machine, I would imagine. The template is held to the door and jamb with nails. Guide pins locate the deep mortise. The edges of the template assure a perfect outline when used with the Soss RGB 100 template guide and lock nut, or the Porter cable guide 42042 lock face routing with the 42237 lock nut using a 3/8 router bit. Now, what all that means is you're going to have a 3/8, and forgive me if you already know this, but for those of you who don't, you'll have a 3/8 diameter bit. That's you must have. The size of this preparation is based on the outer diameter of those two lock nuts that have been the lock guides, the collets that have been mentioned. The Porter cable is the one that I've always used because I like their routers a lot. Not all of their tools, but many of their router tools I like. I've had real good experience with those 7/8 horsepower units, although this would not use that. You'd use a plunge router for it. So you'll need to have the 3/8 bit, and you'll need to have the right lock nut and collet to make this template work for you. So that's step one. If you're going to do a job where you're going to machine some 212s, quite frankly, I think it's worth just purchasing the template. Here's why. If you're going to machine a door and a frame for this, one or more than one, you're going to end up making a template that looks just like this, in my opinion. Certainly if you're going to use a router. If you're not going to use a router, okay, fine, then there you go. But a Soss hinge, really, all hardware is done professionally with a router of some sort. So my opinion, if you're going to use a router, which you ought to, you're going to end up making one of these. It's better off allowing you to just simply purchase this and keep it for your next job, or who knows, maybe you'll never do another one. But the point of the matter is the cost of the template, certainly in my opinion, would be less than your time, trial and error as well, of making your own template. Because this is actually a little bit smarter to begin with. Let's go over it. So we've talked about using the template with the proper collet and lock nut, either the Porter cable or the Soss version. To avoid installation problems, by the way, there's a link below this video to the installation instructions, which I'm referring to. Soss recommends that you do a practice run on a similar piece of material. This practice will help ensure proper installation and reveal any potential difficulties with the routing equipment and or the tools using the template on your finished product. Absolutely. If you've never done this before, put this down onto a piece of 2x4, let's say, and just practice one and see how your hinge fits. Make any adjustments that are necessary at that moment. It's a lot better knowing where you're going to end up before you start mortising that solid walnut jam sooner rather than later. Now, figure 1 references the template itself, calls out the guide pins. Those are basically just a couple of drywall screws that you'll remove when it's time to remove them. Then you'll have a couple of nails, and all those nails really do are go through the drilled holes. And when you place your template down onto the door of the frame, that's what you're going to use to set the unit down. Okay. In my opinion, you want to put the nail onto the template so that it stays stable, but keep in mind you're going to need to drive that out. So don't perhaps overdo it with how difficult or how tight you make the template down. It needs to be stable, but not so much that you can't pull the nails out easily. There is also a reference to the spacer tab that is here, extended over the top of the door. This is just, you have to loosen that screw. It's a bit tight, but that plate will rotate down so that you can literally take it and hang it on the top of the door to get your first location. Okay. Now, figure 2 of the installation instruction calls out location of hinges. The typical American way of doing it is top, middle, and bottom. The typical European way of doing it is top, and then the bottom. Turns out that 70% of the door's entire weight is resting or being held by that top hinge alone. That's why you will see 2 hinges at the top when you're doing a Soss 3-hinge installation. You want to do that. You want the hardware doing the work where the work is actually being presented, and that's up at the top of the door. If you're doing 4 hinges, the guide there will tell you how to go about doing that. I do recommend 2 at the top. If all you have but to do is look around at a hollow metal door that's been installed for a while, and you'll see that sag or the failure of the top hinge plate. That's why the idea of the 2 hinges at the top comes into play. The lower left-hand corner of page 1 shows the side view of what the mortise would look like for the hinge. Basically, what I think that's saying, what I know that it's saying, is you've got 2 preparations you need to do for a Soss hinge. You have what we'll call the plate, just the thin portion that is the entire outside face of the hinge. And you would prep that with the guide pins removed. You've got the plate. And you've got the body of the mortise. That's just going to be the deeper part for just the body part that will set further into the door and frame. So you'll do 2 depth settings on your router. The first for the body, do the body first, then raise the depth of your bit to the proper depth, remove your guide pins, and then do the plate preparation. And at that point, you should have an exquisitely nice prepped door and frame for a Soss hinge. Figure 3 shows a typical door and frame where Soss hinges are mounted. Figure 4 calls out your jam preparation, and this can be used on the door or the frame. Remove the guide pins from the router template, and again, these are the guide pins. Remove those. Place the router template on the hinge jam, so the locator pins, which are here, those are going to rest up against the pull side of the jam, so you know where that's going to lie in relevance, or like what the back side of the hinge will be. So those guide pins do that math for you already. A spacer tab should be flush against the head jam. This is just going to be butted up to the head jam. Once the desired position is established, the nails can be tapped into the door so that you've got your jam ready to be mortised, which is shown in figure 4. Figure table A under figure 4 shows the Soss hinge model. Okay, and a starter size for the router bit. What that means is the size, what they're saying is get a hole drilled into the door or the frame first. Okay, where you will get your router into. You don't want to take the router and try to tip it in or try to slowly bring it in. That router spinning at whatever RPM it is, that'll just take off and rip into your template, is what they're trying to say not to allow to have happen there. Drill a hole first. The 212 requires an 1.5-inch hole. Starter hole depth, basically 1 1/4, something in that range, will work for you very well. Number 5, being careful not to nick or gouge the template. Drill the starter hole for the router to the proper depth, etc. Hinge routing in table B shows the maximum depths to which the hinge outlines should be routed. It is advisable to check the depth of the cut you are making prior to removing a significant amount of wood. If desired, the required depth may be obtained by making multiple router passes. Short version, do it nice and shallow. Take your caliper, measure how deep. Then you can also use your caliper to measure an additional setting on the depth of the router bit. You want to approach it, you want to ease into it. But you know, if you're doing 10 doors, the first one you're going to make some notes on, but after that you'll tear through them, is the bottom line. Not literally tear through them. You'll go faster. Step 7, using whatever means of measurement best suited to you, determine the location of the next hinge. We discussed that on page 1. Finish the rest of your prep through step 8, repeating the prior steps. Now your door preparation. Prior to mounting the template on the door, make certain that the door is properly oriented. You've got the top side up, you've got the proper left-right side. Okay. The clearance between the head jamb and the door is set with the spacer tab. It should be positioned 1/4 turn so that the template will now hang from the door. Now you were using this to butt it up to the header. Now you're going to remove it out and let it hang from the bottom of the door. That spacer is inherently going to give you that 1/8 of an inch margin between the header and the top of the door. Place the router template on the door so the locator pins rest flush against the pull side of the door and are on the inside of the desired direction of the door swing. Pull side. Inside. Well, not necessarily inside, but pull side. Once the desired position is established, the nails can be tapped. Secure your template. Again, being careful not to damage your template. Get your starter hole drilled. And then Table B lists the maximum depths for your preparation. And then to repeat the process is basically what they're saying. So starting at the, what they're basically saying to do is do your plate preparation first on the frame and the door. Go back and do your body preparation. Starting at the top hinge, you're going to reinsert your guide pins is the bottom line. Now, I personally prefer to do it the opposite way. I want my plate or my finished prep to be the very last time that my router actually touches the door. I don't want to risk damaging my clean prep by having to reinsert a template into it. So the installation instructions call it to do the plate first, the body second. I do the body first always. I want to minimize the possibility for damaging the finished look of the mortise that I've created. Okay, so completion of the jam mortises is putting the guide pins in and then working just the body prep. Same for the door, and then mounting the door to the jam. Having completed the routing of the hinge mortises, notice that the hinge mortise is not centered within the thickness of the door. The thin section responds to the inside surface of the door, assuming that's the pull side. Place the Soss hinges into the mortises. So now we're just talking about how to actually attach Soss hinges to the doors. Okay. The final page of the installation instruction will also show you a way for you to create a pre-manufactured template for doing this. Okay. And what they're referring to is the fact that there is a multiple router guide system for this, which is not, speaking of Porter Cable, they have their hinge butt template kits, of which I've owned countless of those and used them. I would get to a point where I knew that I was doing literally hundreds or thousands of doors over the period of years. I would take my template, and I've had templates that I physically welded together because I could never permit that location to change at all for a hinge. So that hinge guide system that Soss can supply you is going to allow you the particular number of these wooden templates along with aluminum guide channels where you can get it all set up and fixed at once. If you're doing more than one of these, well, if you're doing a number of these, you will find the setup time for that guide to be a no-brainer, absolutely, because you'll be able to just move quicker by not having to nail on one template and pull it off and move it down the line. But obviously for accuracy purposes, the hinge locations won't move. I mean, hopefully they don't move at all. You don't move them or bang them around. So you don't have to worry about measuring anything. You know, to be a 1/4 inch off, if you went to 3/4 on the tape measure, but you should have been at 1/4, that sort of thing happens all the time. And if you've routed wood doors or frames in the past, you know if you're off, it's likely that that the work is now just a boat anchor is the bottom line. So these hinge butt template kits that you can get from Soss, if you have any sort of volume at all, are easily amateurized over the cost of the job because it's not really the material, cost, it's the time cost. It's the ability to produce things quickly and not making an entire huge giant project out of it. Okay, finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Soss products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, along with a link to the full product catalog. The bottom line with Soss is this. There is a chart to a document called Nomograph. Soss usage chart Nomograph. The nomograph allows you to know what's the weight of the door and how many hinges are going to be required to hang that door. You will see from that weight chart that Soss hinges get way outside of what regular butt hinges can handle. So if you want a concealed look and you have a heavy door, Soss is a great option because of their capacity to hang a seriously heavy door. That nomograph allows you to get into doors. If you look at that chart, it stops at 500 pounds. That's way, way beyond normal hinges. You can get into hinges that will do that, but you're going to find them in prisons. So there are really no butt hinges that will handle what a Soss hinge can. And I read somewhere that the boss or the manager or somebody back from the old days of Soss basically said, you got a heavy door, I don't care how heavy it is, just keep throwing Soss hinges at it, it'll handle it. And that nomograph serves to prove that. The only downside of Soss is, and there's really no downside other than maybe the perceived technical aspect of having the machine for it. But if you have other hardware that's working with it, and I mean an overhead stop or holder, you need to order that material specifically designed to work with the Soss hinge, because the vertical axis of pivoting on a pivot or on a hinge is a plumb line that doesn't move. But if you take a Soss hinge and you make it go through its 90 degree or 180 degree, you'll see that vertical axis of pivoting actually floats in an arc. So your other hardware has to be templated on the door and frame, and first, of course, manufactured to account for that. So keep that in mind. Soss mixes and matches with everything, so long as you know that up front and have the rest of the hardware made to accommodate. If you have any questions on the Soss number 212 IT Hinge router template or any other Soss product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.